Good evening. Welcome to the Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. The Commission on Elections received more than 43,000 certificates of candidacy for the 2025 elections. The COCs for the senatorial race alone is at 183, a record high.
New DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla lays vows to crack down on pogos, including the large one within Island Cove Resort in Cavite, a property his family used to own.
And President Bongbong Marcos is now in Laos for the annual ASEAN Summit, where he is expected to again raise issues over the West Philippine Sea off the back of another water cannon attack at Bajo de Masinloc.
Well, it was a generally peaceful period of filing of certificates of candidacy as per the assessment of the Commission on Elections of the past 8 days. So let's try to round up some of the numbers. So Comelec received a total of 43,033 COCs nationwide for national and local posts. This was lower compared to the 2022 polls, which had over 47,000 filers. Of the total this year, men made up more than 78% of the candidates.
On the other hand, Comelec received a record number of applicants for senators with a total of 183 filers, as Regina had said earlier. Now, it was originally 184, but former Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana withdrew his candidacy without citing any reason. Now, that number of 183 is higher than the 176 for the 2022 national elections and 153 senatorial aspirants for 2019. Comelec also reported that 190 party list groups applied to join the 2025 race, even if they only accredited 160. This is down from the 270 applicants in the previous election. Many of the party list applicants this year had in fact already filed motions for reconsideration over their accreditations and were denied, but still filed their papers anyway. It is important to note that the Supreme Court had ruled years ago that party list groups do not have to represent the poor and marginalized sectors.
Now, to put these numbers into context, there are 43,033 applicants for 18,280 national and local posts nationwide. For the Senate, there are 183 applicants for 12 spots. In the lower house, there are only 254 spots open, plus another 63 for party list representatives. The final tally for the House of Representatives aspirants has not come in, but in NCR alone, there are already 86. Comelec will now be reviewing all the paperwork and will be aiming to post all COCs on the Comelec website in 2 weeks' time. It says it will also aim to finalize the list of candidates for the 2025 election by December 13.
Ngayong araw na to, ang Law Department namin ay magsasagawa na ng mga pag-aaral at doon sa mismong issue muna, sino ang tatanggalin base sa perpetual disqualification to hold public office na iginawad mismo ng opisina ng Ombudsman. Kaya nga po ang panawagan din po natin sa ating mga kababayan o kung doon sa mga kandidatong sa kanilang palagay ay may mga kalaban sila na dismissed from the service and perpetually disqualified to hold public office, marapat po sana na ma-inform ang Law Department namin. Baka kasi wala pa sa amin yung kopya.
There was quite a bit of outrage after Apollo Quiboloy filed his papers for senator from behind bars through his lawyer. He submitted a certificate of nomination and acceptance, or CONA, under the Workers' Party. But turns out, the party's top officials did not even sign his CONA. The full story from Kari Kator.
On the last day of COC filing on October 8, Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder and leader Apollo Quiboloy gave notice that he is running for senator in the 2025 elections. His certificate of nomination and acceptance, or CONA, was under the name of the Workers and Peasants Party. But WPP disowned Quiboloy at once. In a statement, party president Sonny Matula said he never signed the pastor's CONA. Neither did WPP chairman Ariel Arias or senior VP Oscar Morado. So who signed Quiboloy's document and gave him the go signal to run in the midterm polls? Matula said he has no idea at all. He said they are now investigating the incident. They will also take legal action if it's proven that an unauthorized faction issued Quiboloy's documents without the party's knowledge. Bottom line is, WPP is not endorsing the KOJC founder, who's not even a member of the party.
Bukas kami sa pakipag-usap, kung pag-iusap ang hinahanap nila, pero hindi namin talaga matatanggap na si Quiboloy ay maging kandidato ng WPP, lalong-lalo na akusado siya sa mga maraming krimen, lalong-lalo na yung abuse or sexual abuse sa minor.
Despite the confusion, the Commission on Elections does not want to preempt judgment on whether or not to cancel Quiboloy's application, at least not at this point.
Ayaw ko po muna sabihin dahil napaka-premature at this point. Kung ang problema lang naman ay CONA, I doubt po preliminarily kung yan ay magiging basihan ng pagka-cancel. In the meantime, lahat ng mga nag-file ng candidacies ay pwedeng hindi makatakbo.
COMELEC clarified that two groups are claiming to be authorized signatories of WPP. One is the camp of the embattled pastor, where the signatories are Mark Tolentino, supposedly chairman and president of WPP, and a certain Roberto Pascual. Tolentino is one of Quiboloy's lawyers and was the one who filed the preacher's COC. The other WPP faction is where Matula and 3 other officials belong.
Sana nga po yung partido rin mismo ay sumulat sa amin para naman may trigger. Ayaw po namin kami mismo, hindi po tama yun eh. Kasi para masyado tayong nagiging bias as against a particular candidate.
While Quiboloy's group insists they are the legitimate representatives of WPP, they are looking to file a manifestation with COMELEC to instead make the preacher an independent candidate.
Parang di madami si Pastor sa gulo na yan. Pastor is willing to run as independent, and anyway, maging guest candidate naman siya na mga malaking mga partido, wala pang problema yan.
COMELEC is open to this possibility.
Dahil dalawa ang partido, dalawa ang naka-authorized signatory, kapag po nag-submit sa parehas na posisyon ang dalawang grupo na ito, dalawang signatory, nilalabas po magkaibang CONA, independent candidate yung mismong kandidato.
Quiboloy is currently detained for a string of criminal charges including qualified human trafficking and child abuse. Reporting for News 5 Caricator, we are One News.
One man who is definitely not running is Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla, who officially assumed the post of DILG Secretary today. Outgoing Secretary Benhur Abalos turned over the office to Remulla in a simple ceremony. Abalos is, of course, running for senator next year under the administration's Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas ticket, which is why he had to resign from the cabinet.
Ako'y masaya ngayong araw because I know that I will be leaving the DILG in the hands of a very, very capable person.
Rest assured, no shakeups are necessary, no dramatic announcements will be made. But let me get my feet wet, but tomorrow we hit the ground running.
He says no shakeups are necessary, but there might be one coming for the Philippine National Police. Remulla said he thinks the current police organization is top-heavy with so many generals and so many layers. He wants to flatten the structure a bit and also establish a merit-based system for promotion of officers.
You cannot demand a perfect situation with an imperfect institution. So we have to start with cleaning up shop. I want to remove the politics from the PNP. I want to make it a merit-based system on who gets promoted and who doesn't. Nangyayari kasi ngayon palakasan eh.
There have been questions about Remulla's links to Pogos, though, given their previous ownership of Island Cove Resort in Cavite, and also given he has been Cavite governor since 2019. The Presidential Organized Crime Commission, or PAOC, has said Island Cove now houses one of the largest Pogo hubs in Metro Manila, although the Remulla family has already said they sold the resort in 2018. Remulla vowed to close down all Pogo hubs in the country, beginning with that one in Cavite.
As far as I am concerned, I will get all the list of Pogos and I will personally lock them down one by one, personally. Lahat sila. That will be the first one to be closed. And correction, it's not ours. It was our property, but it's not ours. But that will be the first one closed, just to show a proof of sincerity that I will start with my province and make sure that it is closed.
John Vic Remulla is the second Remulla in the Marcos cabinet and the third Remulla appointed by the president. His elder brother is Justice Secretary Boying Remulla, while younger brother Gilbert Remulla currently serves as a board director of PAGBOR.
And President Bongbong Marcos is currently in Laos for the annual ASEAN summit, where he is expected to raise geopolitical issues in the West Philippine Sea. Just the other day, Chinese vessels again water cannon BFAR ships conducting a resupply mission to the Bajo de Masinloc. Let's get an update on the ground. Joining us from Vientiane, Laos, is no other than News 5's Maricel Halili. Hi, Mase. Good evening. How was the first day over there in the ASEAN summit?
Good evening, Shawn, Reg, and Gretchen. You know, it was a very hectic day for President Bongbong Marcos during the first day of ASEAN Summit here in Vientiane, Laos. He started his day at around 8:30 this morning. He attended the opening ceremony together with other member states of ASEAN. And then he attended a series of sessions, including the plenary session and the retreat session. During our very brief interview with President Marcos this afternoon, we asked him if he was able to bring up the issue on the West Philippine Sea before the other ASEAN leaders. He told us that it was just a very brief mention. He was not able to give the details yet, although it was clear that the position of the government is to ensure that the UNCLOS, the international law, is being implemented in the region. But then again, he said that he will have enough time in the next couple of days to give the details about the Philippines' position on the West Philippine Sea.
All right, well, Mase, we have heard reports that the president met with Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh of Vietnam. How did that go?
That's right. Yesterday, he had a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Vietnam. During the bilateral meeting, the president expressed his condolences to the victims of Typhoon Yagi in Vietnam. And on the other hand, the Vietnam Prime Minister reaffirmed the commitment of Vietnam that they are ready to continue the strategic partnership between the Philippines and Vietnam. Actually, there are still a lot of issues and topics that were discussed, but the Presidential Communications Office said they are not free to give us the details because they are still waiting for the approval of the Department of Foreign Affairs before sharing the other issues that were discussed during the bilateral meeting.
Are the bilateral meetings supposedly that are going to take place with Canada, Japan, and New Zealand, apart from Vietnam, are these pushing through in the coming days, Mase?
So far, when we check the schedule of the president, his bilateral meeting with New Zealand is included in the schedule. But we're still waiting for the confirmation if the bilateral meeting with New Zealand or with Canada and Japan will push through. We checked the schedule of the president up until on Friday, his last day here in Vientiane, Laos, and it was really full. So let's wait and see.
Mase, nagkaroon din ang presidente ng parang sideline meeting. Nakita natin siya, nasa Zoom siya. Mukhang may urgent matter that he attended to. What was that about?
Oh yeah, tama, Gretchen. Nagulat din kami na nagkaroon ng Zoom meeting, no? Kasi ang sinasabi ni Presidente na urgent itong meeting na ito because of what's happening with the Filipinos in the Middle East. Nakita daw kasi nila na medyo mataas na yung tension doon. And so the President feels that there is a need to call for the urgent meeting. He was with the Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo, Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro, and other cabinet secretaries. He said that he gave his directives to these cabinet secretaries to ensure that the government will use all our assets to repatriate all the Filipinos affected in the tension in Lebanon. So far, ang sinasabi ng PCO, more than 1,700 Filipinos na yung nag-express ng kanilang intention to be repatriated. But as of now, more than 500 pa lang yung nakakabalik sa Pilipinas.
May nabanggit ba si Presidente very quickly lang kung bakit hindi si Vice President Sara Duterte yung caretaker?
Oo, Shawn, ang wala pang sinasabi yung Malacanang tungkol dito sa naging decision nila. But this is the first time that the President has decided not to appoint Vice President Sara Duterte as the caretaker of the government while he is in Vientiane, Laos to attend the ASEAN summit. What we know is that before this trip, his last trip was during his state visit in Brunei, an official visit in Singapore. And at that time, si VP Sara pa rin yung ginawa niyang caretaker. But this time, ang ginawa na niyang caretaker sina E.S. Bersamin together with Secretary Remulla and Secretary Estrella. Malacanang is very quiet about it. But as we all know, nagkaroon naman ng sour relationship between the Marcoses and the Dutertes, and especially after the Vice President has resigned from the cabinet.
We just had to ask. Thank you so much for recapping day one of the ASEAN Summit and what PBBM did over there. Maricel Halili joining us live from Vientiane in Laos.
Okay, let's turn our attention back to politics. We were talking about the administration slate earlier. Another person who's running under the Alianza slate is Camille Villar, who is aiming to take over the spot to be vacated by her mother, outgoing Senator Cynthia Villar. Now, political analysts have taken note of the dominance of political dynasties gunning for seats next year, as evidenced by the past week and a half. Families have long been a mainstay of Philippine politics, of course, but they say next year's roster is shocking. Camille Villar, in an interview with our sister program, Sa Totoo Lang, says there shouldn't be an issue with dynasties since people are empowered to choose.
First and foremost, ang unang ko sinasabi dyan ay elected naman po kami, hinahalal naman po kami ng mga constituents namin and mga voters namin. Naniniwala naman ako na pag hindi maganda ang performance mo o kaya pag merong hindi nagustuhan ang tao, they are empowered to choose kung ayaw na nila sa'yo or hindi. And in fact, that's why our family, in whatever positions we have, whether it's in the private sector and in the public sector, we really work hard to make sure na nakikita nung mga kababayan namin or yung mga pinagsiservisyohan namin ang magagandang resulta. You're not anointed or you're not appointed, you're chosen by the people, and I think we should respect that.
But UP political science professor Jean Franco said that's not the right way to look at it.
Ang issue talaga, nawawala yung accountability, lalo na pag sabay-sabay kayo. Pag nasa isang lugar kayo, paano mo pagagalitan yung anak mo? Halimbawa, ikaw governor ka, tapos yung anak mo mayor, paano mo siya pagagalitan? Di ba? So, paano siya, kapag may katiwalian siyang ginawa, paano mo siya i-fiscalize, no? Tapos, yung kumbaga parang wala nang alternative. Sinasabi nila, binoboto naman kami, wala kaming kasalanan. Oo, pero under what conditions, no? Are the votes being made? Ang sikip ibig sabihin, tingnan nyo naman yung yung pumapalo sa surveys, mga kilalang pangalan, kilalang pamilya, ibig sabihin nun, may edge na talaga sila.
All right, let's try to unpack some of those issues a bit more. We have with us tonight political strategist Malu Tikia. Malu, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good evening to Gretchen, Shawn, and Regina. Good evening to everyone.
Malu, it's been a very eventful past 8 days because of the COC filing period. Let's start from a big picture perspective. What was your assessment of this season of filing of candidacies? And also talk us through what's at stake here, particularly for the administration.
The 8 days of filing is actually it shows to everyone how we are always trying to catch the last bus. No, there were surprises in the last 2 days, and essentially the opposition, quote unquote, because nobody has claimed really that they are the opposition, is building their slate as we go day to day. The administration came up with the 12-man women slate. The Duterte lineup misses on two elements: women and Muslim. Traditionally, when you come up with a national slate, you would always have a position, several positions for women and other marginalized sectors. But in the Duterte slate, these are all male, and to a certain degree that gives an advantage to the administration slate, which I think has 4 women in their slate. So the next few days, we will essentially see the building up of the opposition. That's a very good strategy because you earn media mileage as you develop the slate and you present the whole slate. Because right now there are only 6 PDP, 6 PDP or 7 PDP, and the rest are might probably end up as guest candidates because they filed as independent candidates.
You wrote an op-ed actually with the title "The 28." Was it the 2028 race is on? I want to quote something back to you. You said, though Marcos is incumbent, this will be a test of coattails. He will be tested in 2025. What did you mean by that?
If you are an incumbent and you just came from a national election, traditionally you develop coattails. So everyone will just hang on that and hopefully convert and win. Unfortunately, in this administration, the way the slate was built was there are several names there that can stand on its own, on their own strength, on their own network, on their own ability to gain and string the necessary combination of voters. The president does not have a coattail. If you go back to his electoral performance in 2010, was it 2010? Yeah, 2010, 2016, where he lost, and in 2022, where he teamed up with Mayor Sara Duterte. So it's out there in the open. They convinced Mayor Sara Duterte to join the ticket, then known as Uniteam, and that created the catalyst, the impetus for that team to go beyond the traditional numbers for presidential and vice presidential races.
So were you seeing it, Malu, just to be clear, that the last election in 2022, people were kind of riding the Duterte coattails still, in the form of Sara Duterte's coattails?
Yes, I'm saying that because if you look at the number of votes of the Duterte from 2016, when President Duterte ran, in 2019, when a staff of the president, Bongo, ended up number 3 with 22, I think 20 million votes. I'm not sure of the number. And then in 2022, you had Mayor Sara Duterte ending up with 32 million. And the last man to be named in the 12-person ticket, Robin Padilla, ending up as number 1 with 22 million. I call that in the column as tracers. Tracers are candidates that are placed there to determine the measured capacity of candidates Duterte and the measured capacity of the Duterte brand outside of the term of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
How do you think the Duterte brand is going to perform? We're down to 3 official senators under PDP Laban. I guess we can say that the opposition is fractioned right now. We do have, of course, the Liberal Party / people call yellow, the yellow ticket, as well as the Duterte side of the opposition. What are you seeing? What will happen to the Senate after the midterms?
Okay, that's several questions. Okay, one on the Duterte, there's got to be a study on the Duterte brand because the Rodrigo Roa Duterte is not necessarily the same as the brand Sara Duterte. They've never campaigned together. In 2019, there was a slate which Mayor Sara Duterte led. And President Duterte then named another slate of composing of 6 or 7 candidates. And you know, the public was given a chance to select from among around 15 candidates that were endorsed by father-daughter. Will they campaign together and the country will see a joint effort by the father Duterte? The father and the daughter Duterte, that's a challenge. And everyone is looking forward to that because that's going to be strong. Insofar as the Senate, your news a while ago, you were discussing relatives, families controlling the Senate. If you're going to look at the Senate post-2025 and Villar, the daughter, won and the Tulfo brothers won, you would practically have 9 votes that can day-to-day be subject to determination of where the quorum is, where the majority is, and possibly the changing of the Senate President because those families, that's 4 families all in all, will have 9 votes together. They can be a strong swing in the Senate.
Malu, can you help us understand a little bit why the former president decided to run for mayor instead of senator when, as you mentioned in your op-ed, that the move placed a damper on the voters' cry for him to run for senator? What's happening over in Davao right now? And why is it critical for the Duterte family to secure that? Aren't they secure already, given their long history?
Well, one is, yeah, everyone was trying to suggest and to even stake a claim on the former president running for the Senate simply because he was rating well. He was one of the Dutertes coming as it is from Baste and Pulong and the president that was hitting the top 5 or 6 in the previous pre-campaign surveys. What is in Davao? I think they saw and realized that under this administration, they will be pulped dry. Look at what happened to the KOJC, and prior to that, look what happened to the changing of police chiefs. We've had, I think, 3 times 3 changes of the chief of police of Davao City. Davao City being the biggest city in the country, and apart from the changing of the chiefs of police, you would also remember the 34 members of the Davao City Police that were replaced during pre-Quiboloy pre-Quiboloy problem, no? So what is there in Davao? That's the bailiwick of the Dutertes. Davao City is the bellwether of the Davao Peninsula. You win in Davao City, you almost always influence the politics of the Davao Peninsula. It's interesting at the way they played their cards. It's the former president running for mayor. The current mayor ended up as vice mayor, but if you look at how they try to consolidate the district, there is Congressman Pulong running in the 1st district. The son of and the grandchild, son of Pulong, grandchild of PRRD, running in the 2nd district, and of course the 3rd district is Sid Ungab's district, which he holds it strongly. So you will see the consolidation in Davao City. It is also very important that that part of Mindanao is strengthened for purposes of 2028 in the event the Vice President runs.
It's
But
very
Malu,
different though.
sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
is that a roundabout way of saying that Mayor Baste could not have brought it home? Because what the other analysts have told us is that they really needed presence in the Senate in case of an impeachment complaint, right? But instead, former President Duterte has decided to go for a local seat.
Shawn, the problem with the impeachment is if they're going to pursue an impeachment when they come back in session in November 4 and spill over in the last session week in January, that's going to be a political decision. Well, impeachment is a political decision, but we are going into a campaign season, and once you hit and bring impeachment into the campaign season, that kind of divides everyone and really pushes the vice president to go down and engage. Right now, she is not engaging. She is choosing issues to engage on. She has remained quiet in the past 8 days of filing, both at the local and national level. She has not commented on what's happening in Davao City. You bring the impeachment now, she will be all over the place. And during a campaign season, you cannot really control what comes out of that. There will be so many extraneous variables that you will have to contend with, and that might impact on the performance of the administration party.
Could it not, though, be seen as perhaps Baste not being strong enough to be able to definitively grab Davao City again? That's why the dad had to be called in. On top of that, the lay of the land has really changed, right? I think the administration could be supporting the opponents. The comebacking siblings, the Nograles siblings, are back. One going for mayor, one going for their old district, which is now with Pulong. How does this factor into, what could happen down there?
Well, alam mo, Regina, si Baste is strong because his first attempt to run, he was not a councilor. He right out from the cage, he ran for mayor, and he successfully got that. His governance style may be different from the father. Certainly, he is the future of the Dutertes. Why the president? Rodrigo Duterte brings into the campaign his hat as being ex-president. And that is very, very, very strong. So when he filed that, and he was able to bring out those who are interested to run against him, you saw the reaction of the Baweños. You saw the reaction of the citizens who love Mayor Duterte and who immediately made an issue of hindi mo ba magalang ang nagbigay sa iyo ng karir mo, ang nagtrust sa iyo for 6 years, and actually appointed you as civil service chief. That to me, the civil service chief is a career. That's a 6-year term. You can actually impact on so many in the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is 1.5 million workers. The fact that he had to make public his resignation and had to explain to everyone, and when he went to Davao City to file, he was not being forthright when he was there in Comelec. So there's a lot of the Baweños who are saying, they still will go for the old man despite the age and the situation. I think that going up against an ex-president is something else.
Malu,
Secondly, all politics is local, and certainly the Dutertes know how to play that.
Malu, the way this looks like kasi parang si tatay, tinulungan niya yung kanyang, yung son niya, si Baste. Imbis na yung daughter niya, kumbaga, parang imbis na protektahan niya si Sara, pinili niya dito kay Baste. Kaya kung napapaisip kami, kung baka nakita nila na mas kailangan si PRRD doon. Go ahead.
If you know the relationship of the father and daughter, they rarely talk. I don't think they talk about 2025. Why run for vice president? I think everyone knew what happened there. Why is she doing it on her own? I think that is what the vice president wants. It's not essentially bakit hindi mo tinulungan yung anak mo, vice president. I think we've had clips before where he said, where PRRD said, mag-ingat kayo doon sa anak kong babae. So technically, what we are seeing is the president concentrating in his bailiwick, where he started. I guess it's a full circle for him. He started in Davao. He was talking about what his grandfather did, what his father did, what his mother did, and what he should do, which is it's very hard to understand why you would want to go Davao instead of the national. But I think this is a former president who've had enough of national politics and would really want to protect and see through the development of Davao City in his sunset years.
Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we do hope to have you back on to talk about local races in other key cities. For now, we're going to have to leave that there. Publicos Asia founder and seasoned political strategist Malu Tequia, thanks for your time.
Okay, we're going to be pausing for a very quick break. Right after that, we will be speaking with the President and CEO of the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines on recent developments in the IT-BPM sector. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You are still watching Big Story on One News.
One industry that is sure to welcome closer ties with the ASEAN is the IT and Business Process Management industry, or IT-BPM for short. The industry group, known as IBPAP, recently said that it has been receiving growing interest from potential clients in Asia, Australia, and the UK. Key sectors attracting interest include banking and financial services and telecommunications, where the group says Filipino skills are highly valued. But they are also seeing growing competition from markets like Vietnam, Poland, Egypt, and South Africa. IBPAP says it has conveyed to Education Secretary Sonny Ongara its wish list for addressing the workforce skills gap.
What exactly are those workforce skills gap? Let's dive into that a little bit more. Joining us tonight, we have Jack Madrid. He's the president and CEO of the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines, or IBPAP for short. Good evening, Jack. Thanks so much for coming all the way here. Before we get into the issues, let's talk about, give us a broad overview of how big the IT-BPM sector is in the Philippines. We took a graphic from your report. How much revenue, how many jobs are we looking at?
You know, over the past 2 decades, we've grown at a very impressive trajectory. And I'm happy to report that this year we will grow 7% in jobs. We will end 2024 with 1.82 million Filipinos employed directly by the industry and generating export revenue of $38 billion.
That's for 1 year alone?
That's for 2024.
You did say, though, that you expect more modest growth in revenues for 2025, and that's a bit scary since we know that the middle class is heavily anchored on this sector.
Not so scary, considering that we're coming off a relatively big base. We are already at 8.5% of GDP, so when you're coming from a big base, the percentage growth will definitely be more modest. But the other reason for that is that, you know, with recession globally potentially happening, there might be a more modest growth in global volume. But having said that, we have always outpaced global growth rates in IT-BPM. For example, India grew 3.5% the past 2 years. The Philippines doubles that at 7%. So I think competitively, we're still more than holding our own. In
India is
terms of
still
market
the
share.
#1 offshoring center in the
Yes,
world.
primarily because of their bigger population.
We're still #2.
A solid #2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I remember a time when Reg and I were together in a show many, many years ago. We were talking to the then head of IBPAP, and you guys were gunning to be 15% of GDP to equal OFW remittances. Whatever happened to that? Where are we at vis-a-vis OFW remittances?
Well, you know, I think...
Or did we just abandon that whole...
Well, no, at least for me, I don't view the OFWs as some kind of competition.
Not really a competition, but...
I mean, they are heroes on their own right. But I'd like to focus more on the other heroes that are not as talked about as OFWs. I call them the digital Filipino workers. Call it DFWs, who have been, you know, the real pathway to the middle class for this country. Because we are all here generating as much revenue as the OFWs.
That's exactly the whole batting point of the sector, right? But you also mentioned critical threats, this skills gap we were talking about. I also read in the papers that you just met with Education Secretary Angara to talk about these skills gaps so that you guys can go hand in hand and provide. Oh, how did that conversation go? First off, thank you. I guess you donated some computers as well to the DepEd. But what did you and the Secretary talk about?
We talked about 3 asks for the industry. We kept it short. Not in any order, but we talked to him about bringing back English as a medium of instruction. Because it is the language of business globally. And while we have superior communication skills, we've noticed that there has been some slippage in the quality of English communication, comprehension, and that also affects critical thinking. So whatever aspect of IT-BPM you are, you need those fundamental soft skills. Whether you're doing banking, financial services, or healthcare, or even engineering, you will need those core skills. Now, the other bucket will be specific domain skills, because our industry has matured and diversified over the past decades. No longer we just take the phone and answer simple queries. We are actually providing very complex level of work, including care management for patients in hospitals in the U.S.
So it's evolving and evolving because of also the acknowledgement of the skill set of Filipinos. But I was wondering if artificial intelligence also played a huge factor in the slowdown of the growth. And when you say there is a talent and skills gap, does it mean that we are underskilled? And how are we underskilled?
I mean, that's the all-important question. This industry was founded on the bedrock of Filipino talent. And that is solid. We are a world capital in this space. But to execute and deliver the additional 1 million jobs that the IBPAP's roadmap promises to deliver, that's the most aggressive scenario, we really need to focus on the talent supply. And the talent skills mismatch is a serious one. And again, I go back to those two buckets. The soft skills bucket, and then those specific domain skills. I'm not saying everyone study AI, everyone study computer science. No, study what you want, but be good at it, because there will be a job for you in IT-BPM, because our industry offers a very diverse set of
What is in
career
demand
paths.
now? What kind of skills? Like domain skills?
Across the board.
You mentioned data analytics, I think
for
programming.
example.
Well, those are the specific skills gaps. But you will need analytics in a variety of different functions. We see growth in healthcare. We see growth in banking and financial services. And also the more traditional areas like hospitality and other kinds of customer experiences. But yes, the Filipinos are good in...
I remember in New York, there are restaurants with Filipino cashiers. So is that part of the PPO
Well,
industry
it's part of the overall space. But there is also a job hierarchy in our industry. And so I'd like to see it as a hierarchy based on level of complexity. Now, we are all aspiring for the higher complexity and higher value-added services.
Because those can't be taken over by AI.
Those are a little bit harder.
Not as vulnerable.
I want to go back to Gretchen's question on AI. The AI phenomenon will certainly affect the future of work. In fact, we're living in that future already. But we like to see AI as a co-worker of our Filipino agent.
You guys also said AI cut jobs by 8% in surveyed firms. So can you put that
let me explain that. We did a survey a few months ago of our members. Now, of all the respondents, 8% did say that there was a reduction in job roles due to AI. But interestingly, 13% reported an increase in the number of roles due to AI, which matches the 7% growth that we're going to report. So it's still a little bit early to say that jobs will be disrupted. Certainly, there will be some jobs that will be affected. Simple, routine, automatable, repetitive tasks that should be replaced so that those people can be reskilled.
Those new roles are also related to AI? Were created because of the technology?
Yes, because 67% of our members are implementing AI trials and use cases. So, the industry is not waiting for AI to happen. We're taking the lead.
Right. So we understand the general concept of it, which is it will perhaps abolish low-level, low-value jobs, but create a lot more jobs in the higher value segment. What is, number one, is the government laying the right foundations to make sure that we capture a bigger part of the market? And number two, what does the other side of that coin is, what does the private sector need to make sure, okay, we're in the midst of a global shift once more, right? In much the same way when the iPhones came into existence, when smartphones came into existence, it triggered this whole a drastic change in the way people worked. So now we're on the precipice of another shift. How do we make sure that we capture that and we get ahead of that trend?
Stakeholders will have to work together. So this will need the private sector who have carried the burden so far in talent development, and when we onboard new hires, we train them for 6 to 8 weeks before they go into production on average. But it will also require the uplifting of the talent supply that are coming, with the 700,000 university graduates every year. And also some senior high school students who may want to enter the workforce without going to college. And we're good with that too.
I did read that. Is it true that you are working on hiring people or employees straight out of senior high school?
Many of our members are exploring that and have begun doing that. And the recommendation, going back to our conversation with Secretary Angara, we asked him to increase the immersion hours or on-the-job training hours for senior high school students from a minimum of 80 to raising the minimum to 640
So they can
hours.
be employable, directly employable.
That might make a lot of people unhappy, a lot of students unhappy. Like, what? I have to do twice more the number of hours?
Well, they will be getting employment.
But they
depends how you look at it.
To college.
Depends how you look at it.
Is that paid internships?
Oh, well, yes, there is.
Internships.
But
the big prize is virtually guaranteed employment.
Right, I get it, but upskilling is a medium to long-term plan. It doesn't happen overnight. What else does the industry need from the government in order to make things happen?
Upskilling is a complex process. There are some early interventions, maybe shorter-term interventions. And then there's the longer term, how do we fix and upgrade our educational system?
Yes.
But we have a target of adding 1 million jobs. We need all of those interventions. I like to think of it as maybe adding like a finishing school type process before university
I like that.
students
Finishing
graduate.
school for BPOs.
Yes, we don't need 2 years.
That's
of training.
That's a good idea.
Specifically, parang TESDA pang BPO.
Correct.
I think that's a great idea.
It's very specific, skill specific.
I'm very, very curious because you highlighted 5 challenges for the IT BPO industry. the others, we've already known them. High cost to entry, ease of doing business, competition, talent and skills gap. But the other one, which is cybersecurity, when we talk to cybersecurity experts, they keep saying this is a worldwide problem. Help us understand what investors look at in terms of assessing whether they set up shop here, and how do we work on this side of things?
Our industry handles a lot of sensitive customer data. And so that data has to be protected more than adequately against ransomware, hacks, and other kinds of, activities of cyber criminals. And that's why this is such an important topic. And that's why we view it as a risk.
So legislation
But when you do that, do you take it upon yourselves as the companies directly involved, or do you rely on the government?
Well, I think,
or is it
again, it's going to be all stakeholders. The government has to have some standards in terms of minimum standards of quality of cybersecurity protection to enforce that.
Accountability.
And then, but ultimately, in our industry, we have to ensure that whatever customer data we handle has to be protected from these kinds of cyber
I also
attacks.
made a note of this because I'm so curious. Are there still new companies wanting to locate here in the Philippines, knowing all the 5 things that Gretchen just mentioned, issues with red tape, et cetera, et cetera?
You know, I think our position as the world number 2 in this space is, is very strong. We are a capital, and I think we will always be attractive. But that is primarily because of the Filipino talent, which is why we need to protect that, because we are the youngest country in Asia, 25 years average age. That makes us very attractive. We are the only destination alongside India that can scale because we have the demographic advantage. There are competitors, but they cannot scale like the Philippines and India.
We're just flashing your
And we need
graphic
We
there.
need to make sure the talent keeps on evolving with the times.
Although I think those numbers are not accurate anymore, because you said $38 billion in revenue this year, right? So
yes, those are 2023 numbers.
Oh,
but
I see.
Add 7% to all those numbers, and that will take
that's
you
pretty
to 24.
fantastic.
It is.
Yes.
Jumping on Shawn's question, I know IBPAP, the group, has been conducting roadshows overseas, markets in Asia, Australia, the UK. What do you hear on the ground? What are they telling you about?
I'm happy to say there's continued interest wherever we go. And I think that's why I highlighted those headwinds, because I want to protect our renown and maintain our market share. But we're in a very good position. And as long as we take care of that talent skills gap, we should be in good shape regardless of those headwinds moving ahead.
We look
What
forward
industries?
to a specialized school
Yes, well,
before you step down.
those interventions are going to be very important. And given our history, the Filipino talent is very agile, is resilient, and is capable of learning, unlearning, and relearning new skills. So I think we just need to make those investments in the skills.
But what industries are looking to offshore here? What other industries?
70% of our current business is from North America.
Correct.
But increasingly, the EU countries, UK, Australia, are showing some interest, and so we want to leverage that. In terms of sector, banking, financial services,
Still
and
banking.
healthcare are the most promising.
Okay.
So we're going to see some growth there.
Wherever the world is going more digital, that's probably where they would need.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Well, what's interesting, and not a lot of people know this, but only 30% of total work that can be offshored has been offshore.
Oh, really?
So there's another 70%
The market is
of
not
work.
saturated?
No. There are more contact center agents in the U.S. than elsewhere.
This one, Jack, I wanted to ask you, this might be like a super left field, but I did catch a report where you guys were, where it said that you guys in the IT-BPM industry are still waiting for some clarity on work flexibility. Are you talking about a more legislated kind of like hybrid or flexible work schedule for our contact center agents?
Work flexibility is not unique to IT-BPM.
Yeah.
I think it applies to everyone. Maybe not yourself.
But it's really unique in the Philippines. I think traditionally, Filipino employers are kind of opposed. But then traffic is so bad, etc., etc.
It's a complex and sensitive issue.
It is.
But it's important. If you listen to the voice of the employee, it's pretty damn important. But there's no one magic number for all employees of our industry because we have many different sectors.
Yes.
We have observed a gradual uptick towards returning to on-site. But I think imposing that, making it a rule, is not good if you're listening to the employee. It's all about flexibility.
That's true.
And it really varies depending on what the employer wants and depending on what the customer wants. You have to remember, we're handling a lot of sensitive data. And data is better protected in on-site operations. So it's a bit of a balancing act.
Yeah. Rather than do everything
So
online.
bottom line, there will be more jobs in the coming years?
Well, the demand continues strong. I mean, I meet with investors almost every day, both prospective and those who are already here. If we can meet the talent supply skills gap, we will be in good shape and continue to be a world leader in this space.
That's a great message to all our senatorial aspirants because
Very positive.
Yes,
yeah, I know,
know.
because there's also a survey that came out today by Pulse Asia saying that creating jobs should be the #1 platform of the senatorial aspirants. So hopefully they're listening. But we're going to have to leave that there for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us and congratulations on the successful International IT-BPM Summit that you just held last week. That was Jack Madrid. He's the president and CEO of the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines.
On that note, that's it. We have run out of time. I think almost 10 minutes ago. That's it for the big story on this Wednesday night.
Tier 1 News, all sides, all the time.
Lots to talk about every day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night.